Good morning. Just getting to the farm here. It is raining, so there will be no harvest today. We do have a fair amount of wet corn to dry, so we'll get that fired up. Phil's fueling up our generator right now. Outside of that, I don't know what else is going on today. I'll probably spend a little bit of time going through some of the recommendations and maps that we got yesterday from our crop consultant, and we'll see what else I can find to do. Okay, so I've been going through our soil test results and recommendations for next year, and I thought I would share with you just a little bit of what we're looking at. So basically, for every page every field, we get a page that looks like this. It has the zones. I'll show you. This is kind of the map of this field that we're talking about. Each of those little blocks is a different zone in the field, and we pull a separate soil sample from each zone. The zones are created from yield history and soil maps and stuff, so that we have a pretty good idea that that soil is all the same within each zone. So then these letters correspond to the zones, and these are the kind of things that we get in the test results. So our CECs, pH of the soil, how much organic matter it is, sulfur, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium. So, and then there's some other micros down here and base saturations and stuff. So we can take all this information, more test results, and then our consultant analyzes it, puts together a recommendation for how much fertilizer we should put on those fields, and makes maps that look like this. This is a map of, well, what they call their blend 6, but it's a potash and sulfur mix, AMS, ammonium sulfate and potash blend. And you can see that this field doesn't have a ton of variation, 175 pounds per acre in the red zones and 200 pounds per acre in the green zones. This map's got a little bit more variation. This is a lime map. Most of the field is good. All the red is zeros, but there are a couple of zones that need a little bit of lime. So all of our fields have basically a recommendation that is something like that. Most of the fields that the recommendations are there, we'll probably follow and have them put on. A couple of them, like the one that we tiled on, we really can't get that spread this fall, so we'll have to maybe try and do something in the spring or just wait a year and do it then. For the most part, none of our fertility levels are really bad, but when you're taking off pretty good crops, it's always good to replace the nutrients that you're removing from the soil. So we're going to go through that a little bit closer here today and figure out what exactly the plan is, balance cost with, you know, fertility needs, and make sure that we're not shorting ourselves for next year. So here's another cool thing that I was looking at. This is the yield map from the field that we combined yesterday, cornfield. And you can see back in here, obviously that's where all that coon damage was, and some of these red spots out in the field, which seems random, but those are also coon damage. So not a whole lot to see in this back half, you know, fairly consistent. There's a couple of streaks here that I don't know exactly what was going on there. But if you look up here in this field, some very clear definitions or differences in some of this. So obviously this side is quite a bit darker green. That's where we switched varieties. So all of this back here, and then everything basically from this line that way is the same variety, and all of this stuff in here that's this darker green was a different one. I'll have to highlight some stuff and go in and see exactly what the yield differences were, but clearly there was it was a better yielding variety. The other one is a big difference that's very noticeable here is this break right here. That's not a variety change. What that is actually we sprayed some fungicide on this field, and that was the test strip. So the guy, when he sprayed it, we used a Hagie, a ground sprayer. I think you can go back and find the video from this from the summer, but he started right here and went straight and then kept going back and forth across the field towards the woods that way, and did not do the round in these short rows. That's amazing how much of a difference that made. So we've got a couple other fields where we've got a similar split that we'll take a look at after harvest here, but that looks pretty promising, like the fungicide paid off quite a bit. In today's episode of How We're Saving the Planet, that truck required a parked regen today, which basically means that it has to sit there at a high idle for about 45 minutes while it cleans the exhaust filter and burns all the crap out of it. You know, because sitting there burning, running for no reason is good for the environment, right? I came out to check the dryer. We got it started up this morning. Everything looks to be running good. Corn going in still 29%, but it's coming out at 14, and that's what we want. So we're good there. Basically, just keep an eye on it today. Shouldn't really have to do anything. Pretty automatic. So, okay, Phil hauled a load of soybeans in, taking it to Toledo to the elevator. I'm gonna walk back out here and check on the dryer. We got steam coming out of it, so it's still drying corn. We'll just make sure everything's still running right, do a calibration. That's lunchtime. So one of the things I wanted to check is how much is left in our wet bin. Which means we have to climb up all these steps. Let me get up here and look at. Looks like it's down about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rings maybe. Got a ways to go. Okay, back on the ground. Today would actually probably be a pretty good day to kind of explain to you how our grain system works. So I'm going to go through that and explain it a little bit. It all starts here with our pit. We drive our trucks through here and park over this grate. And then the corn or beans or whatever, we dump down into this pit here. There's an auger in the bottom of it that feeds over to our wet leg. This leg, basically we call it a grain leg, and what it is it's a, basically there's a rubber belt in there that has cups on it, and they go up one side and come down the other, and so it basically it makes a big loop, and those cups grab the grain as it comes around the bottom, down here, and then it goes up, and it throws it, and when that cup kind of makes the turn over the top pulley, I don't know how well I'll be able to show you this. Okay, so the grain comes in the pit, gets augered over to the leg, goes up one side of the leg, and then it goes across the top and it kind of gets thrown into this distributor right here. That distributor then has a pipe that goes to each one of our grain bins into our dryer. And the way that it works when we're drying corn is we select it to go to the dryer, and it goes in and it fills up our dryer. Once the dryer gets full, the corn backs up that pipe and it actually overflows down this pipe, goes into what we call our wet bin. That bin has all of the wet corn in it that we have to get dried yet. I'll walk back up there. When the dryer calls for more corn, it turns on this auger, which augers it back into the wet bin. It goes back up and makes the cycle again, but this time that pipe going to the dryer is empty, so it fills into there until the sensor tells it that it's full. When the corn comes out of the dryer, it comes out of these drags. I kind of talked about how this dryer works in another video. It comes across here and it goes into our dry leg. So this leg is the same thing. It's a little bit smaller, but it has that same rubber belt with buckets on it. It takes the corn clear up to the top. We have another distributor, and then there are more pipes that actually cope into the pipes on the shorter leg, and that one is sending the corn. Okay, far enough away we can see now, so that the corn is going up dry up this really tall leg. It goes down one of these pipes, and then it actually is going down this pipe that goes down over to that bin. On that bin, it hits this conveyor, and this conveyor takes it up to the top of our really big bin, where it dumps it in there. So that big bin over there holds 120,000 bushels. Because we did not get nearly all of our corn planted this spring, we will get every bushel of corn that we grow into that bin this fall here. And so that just kind of runs as the dryer's putting dry corn out. It goes in there, it stores it. There are fans on all of these bins that kind of blow air through it, aeration fans, to help cool the corn down and make sure that it doesn't get hot and spoil while it's in the bin. When we're doing beans, usually they're dry enough that we don't have to worry about running them through a dryer. So basically they would go in the pit, through the leg, right into this bin over here, which is the bin that we're storing beans in this year. Because our beans have been a little bit wet, most of them this fall. We've had to dry them, so first thing they do is go in the pit, up the leg into that bin. That is our GSI top dry, and I showed you that one in the drying beans video on how it has that false floor up on the top and holds the beans up there. We blow hot air under them and then it dries it. As the bottom of that bin gets full, we then pull that beans out of there, use that auger right there, and they go back into the leg, up, and then into the storage bin right there. So that's how our grain system works. I do need to do that calibration on the dryer. I'll show you how that works here real quick. First thing we need, empty bucket. So this is the moisture tester on the dry side of the dryer. Basically it samples the grain coming out before it goes up the leg. What we need to do here is push this button, hold our bucket, and open this door. Basically the sampler is testing the moisture of this corn, and then we're catching it before it goes into the leg. We'll take it in and compare that to what our benchtop tester says. When the light stops blinking, that's how you know you've got enough for your sample. And we're good. We pour that sample into our moisture tester. We like to write the time in, 11:55. Hit the green button. It dumps it. Maybe. There it goes. And you'll see an arm level it off. Now it's going to test it. .9. Okay, I'm going to run that test through 2 more times and we'll take an average. Okay, so the average of my 3 tests was 14.9. So the next thing we do is come over to our Dryer Master controller here. We hit the calibrate button. We have an outlet sample waiting, so we hit enter. Controller said it was 13.9. Our actual was 14.9. So we enter that in, hit enter. It will correct a little bit for that, so now you can see its outlet went up right up to 14.3. Basically we do this about once an hour. We do like to record what the result was just so we have a good record of it, and because I like graphs, I made a fancy graph that kind of shows the differences too. So that's how that works. Now it's lunchtime. Alright, I am back from lunch. I went out and calibrated that dryer again just to check, make sure everything's still running good. No surprise it is. Working on the computer a little bit here this morning, a little bit more here this afternoon. There we go. And I just talked to one of my seed customers who still has some boxes I need to pick up from wheat. I'm going to go plan on doing that here in a couple hours this afternoon, so I'll have to get the trailer hooked up to my truck here in a little bit. Yeah, other than that, hanging out and trying to find stuff to do, I guess. Looking up a trailer in the rain. No fun. Ready to go. Okay, so I came out to check this dryer just one more time before I go out to get them boxes. And the auger kicked on that fills the dryer. And I noticed that the belts were slipping because it's raining and they're getting wet. So I came up with an ingenious plan to keep the belts dry. And so far it seems to be working. It just rained again, didn't have any trouble, so I think that'll be okay. I'm going to go say something to Dad, just have him come check it for me in a little bit, and then I'm going to go get those boxes picked up, and I'll have that job done. Boxes are loaded up. When it's raining out, it's not fun to strap down boxes, break them down. No good. But we got them. Back to the warehouse to unload them. At least when I'm unloading the boxes, I can do it inside when I'm not out in the rain. Now I get to unhook the trailer in the rain. Alright, back in the office here. It's a little after 5. Cold, rainy, crappy day. I don't have a whole lot else going on, so I'm going to call it and we're going to go home. Hang out with my kids tonight. We've gotten up to about 3/10 of an inch of rain, so it's been raining all day, but we really haven't gotten that much. Not that we need any of it, but it's better than raining all day and ending up with 1.5 inches. So We'll see how much more we get tonight and tomorrow and what things look like. I have no idea what's going on tomorrow. I'm sure we'll find something to do. I do know I have a meeting at the bank in the morning, so I'm going to do that. Yeah, end of video stuff. Hit the like button, subscribe. Go to my Facebook page. Find me on Twitter at Border View Farms. Have a good night, and I will see you tomorrow.